Hi, in this video I want to talk about what I consider to be the missing ingredient in hypnosis training. Most hypnosis trainings these days, in certainly the early stages, they'll talk about building rapport, and a lot of this comes from NLP, and they'll talk about matching and mirroring the other person's behavior, and all these things are very good. However, if you go back to the very early hypnosis books, many years ago, I went to the British Library in London, and in the British Library, I don't know if you know this, they've got virtually a copy of virtually every book that's ever been in print. And so they've got a lot of the really early hypnosis books, and going back to mesmerism and things like that. And one of the interesting things is when you read these old books, they do not mention rapport at all. It's never mentioned. But what they do mention is something called prestige, the prestige of the hypnotist. And this is something that I think is really important that many people just don't get, but it is really important. In fact, I would suggest that it's one of the most critical things that you need to have as a hypnotist. The person needs to believe that you are a hypnotist and that you can hypnotize them. This is such a big thing that so many people don't get. They think that it's all about the induction. They think it's all about the suggestions. It's not. It's about the client's belief that you can help them, that you can hypnotize them. Let me give you some ideas on that. Many years ago, back in probably the mid to late 90s, Paul McKenna used to do a stage hypnosis show on TV, and then he did another program, I think it was coming something like The Strange World of Paul McKenna, where he would go out into various different situations and hypnotize people. And there was one particular scene where he goes into a supermarket. Now, bearing in mind, he's got a whole film crew there. He goes into a supermarket and he hypnotizes a girl on the checkout, so that every time she scans something and it makes a bing through the machine, she gets a certain sensation. And of course, everyone was laughing at this. And the assumption there was that it was the induction or whatever that had happened that had caused her to respond in that way. I would argue that point, because here's the thing: if no one knew who Paul McKenna was, and there was no big TV crew, and there was not the excitement, the buzz in the supermarket that there was a hypnotist doing filming in there, that situation would never happen. Because if you or I went into a local supermarket and tried to hypnotize the person behind the cash desk without telling them that you're a hypnotist, without giving them any information about that, you just went in and tried to do a handshake interrupt or something like that, nothing would happen. It's not the induction. It's the belief that the person is the hypnotist. Because if no one knew who Paul McKenna was and he didn't have a film crew with him, that situation wouldn't have arisen. Now, I know some people are going, hang on a minute, what about street hypnotists? Well, the street hypnotists, they know about prestige. If they don't know about it directly, they do know about it. So this is why so many hypnotists today have t-shirts or sweatshirts with hypnotist written on them, right? Because that's part of it. It's like, wow. And they always will come up and start talking about hypnosis first and saying, I'm a hypnotist. This is really important. So as a hypnotist, you need to be the hypnotist. You need to have the prestige that when people look at you, they think, yeah, that person can hypnotize me. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go around like Mesmer did with big cloaks and things like this, and big starey eyes and things like that. But what you need to do is to give off this sort of air of being a hypnotist, so that people know that you are a hypnotist, and they believe that you can hypnotize them. So do this. This is really important. This is the secret thing that people just don't get. It's not the induction. The induction's just a ritual. The person you're working with, whether that be in the street, on stage, in your office, they have to believe that you are capable of hypnotizing them. This is the big thing. I recently watched a TED talk with some guy talking about what is hypnosis, and he said it very clearly. Hypnosis isn't about the induction, it's about the person believing that you can do this. It's about them believing that you're a hypnotist. So this is really, really important. So you need to be professional in everything you do. If they're coming to your office, you need to have a nice office. If you're doing it on Zoom, that's not a problem. Even if you haven't got a huge space, you can have nice backdrops and whatever in your videos. But they need to believe that you're a hypnotist. This is why it's so important to use things like what I'm doing here of social media to get yourself on YouTube, get your presence out. So people start to look at you and think this person knows what they're talking about. So this is so important. When you're using social media, portray yourself as the hypnotist. A lot of times, I heard one recently, someone saying, oh, I've got a bit of a problem. I don't want to use the word hypnosis or hypnotherapist. I want to talk about visualization or something like that. Well, if you do that, you're throwing away some of the most important part of the process. If you look at some of the research done by Irvin Kirsch, he has done a lot of research on hypnosis over the years, and what he found was that the induction itself adds less than 10% to the success of the session. And he said that's not due to the fact that the induction induces the altered state. That's not what's happening. What he's saying is it's the word hypnosis that creates the extra 10%. So if you're going to be a hypnotist, you have to be a hypnotist. You have to have this air of prestige about you that says, I can hypnotize you. You need to be congruent in your actions, and you need to follow through on that. So be the hypnotist. Have a look, Google the word prestige and find out what it means. And I say you don't need to be wearing flowery robes and things like that. You just need to be giving off that air of being a hypnotist. If you want to put these t-shirts on with hypnotist on, that's great, because that's a good start. It's really, really important that you stress this idea that you can hypnotize the other person. And if you study things like NLP, you want to study presuppositions, so that when you're talking to the person, you're presupposing that they're going to go into hypnosis. So it's all about this setup. It's all about building belief and expectancy. If the person believes that you can hypnotize them, then it doesn't matter what induction you use, because it's not the induction. It's the belief and expectancy that you're the hypnotist and you can hypnotize the client. So this is the main thing. Yes, matching and mirroring, doing rapport and things like that's all very well and good, but unless they believe that you're a hypnotist, it's not going to be that effective. Now, just on that note, because and some people go, well, yeah, no, it's the inductions and whatever. I want you to think about this. If you're first starting out, or if you remember back when you were first starting out, a lot of trainers will say to you, be careful working with friends and family. And they will say, because you might not work all that well. Well, when you think about that, why wouldn't it work all that well? If it's all about the induction, if it's all about inducing the altered state, then what difference would it make if you're hypnotizing friends and family? It shouldn't make any difference at all. It makes a difference because your friends and family know that you just learned this stuff, and maybe you might screw them up, but your clients don't know that unless you make the mistake of saying, oh, I just passed my exam last week, oh, I hope this is going to work. No. So when you're working with friends and family, the reason it doesn't work is because they just think of you as Fred or Mary. They don't think of you as a hypnotist. But when your clients think of you as the hypnotist and you do this process, then it works. So you have to have this prestige. This is why it's so important to be the hypnotist. This is the missing secret that nobody talks about. They just talk about matching and mirroring, gaining rapport, and it's all on the induction. No. It's about you being the hypnotist. about installing that belief in the client or whoever you're working with that you're going to hypnotize them, and then it works. It's belief and expectancy, guys.